Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Malik here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for June 11th, 2022, around 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the potential for multiple tropical cyclone threats to be developing over the next several days and some big storms forming up in the north. So let's go ahead and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we noticed that most of the Atlantic basin is pretty quiet. We do have an area of shower thunderstorm activity over here in the southern portion of the Caribbean towards portions of the Central American area. But other than that, really all else is pretty quiet. We start to turn our attention to this area in the tropical Atlantic over the next several days and potentially even the Gulf of Mexico for potential development. We are also looking at Invest Area 92E, now officially designated as an invest, that has a pretty high likelihood of becoming a tropical depression or storm over the next 5 days, maybe even a hurricane. So taking a look at that area, this is the tropical weather outlook from this morning from 8 a.m. We noticed that there is a high likelihood for development of Invest Area 92E to become a tropical depression or storm. This could even go on to become a hurricane, and there is some increasing concern for at least some land threats here, some land impacts to portions of coastal Mexico. So it'll definitely be interesting to monitor, and we'll talk about what impacts could be expected here in a minute. So if we look here at the visible satellite imagery, we notice that the overall envelope of energy is still very broad. There's not a very well-defined circulation at the moment, but this is just a broad area of spin in the atmosphere. And it's mainly this area that we're kind of really starting to watch here. And this will begin to move generally off towards the west or northwest before it could eventually swing back inland to portions of coastal Mexico. And for that, we'll take a look here at the HWRF model. So this is a hurricane-specific model. Now, intensities can be quite overdone with areas of invest because there is not a well-defined low-level circulation. We don't have aircraft reconnaissance data. So the intensity and some of the track forecast, because of the intensity, because those are sort of related, they can be a little bit off. But generally, to give a kind of a good understanding here, we'll take a look at the 850 millibar vorticity, so the spin in the atmosphere at 5,000 feet above the ground. We notice right now, this goes out to about 2 p.m. Today. We notice that there's a very broad area of circulation. There's not a very well-defined area. But eventually here on the HWRF, it does begin to close off here sometime by Sunday evening going into Monday afternoon and evening. So during that time, we actually have a system that begins to close off here on the model, and eventually that becomes a pretty solid storm south here of Mexico, and this could definitely pose a land concern. If we look at the upper level environment here, we notice that there will be some shear. Again, the upper level environment is not all that great. We do have a little bit of shear coming in kind of from north to south, and we also have a little bit of that displaced anticyclonic fashion going on there. But at least here on the end of the run here, we at least notice that the shear is at least semi sort of better and allows and calls for a little bit more strengthening. And same thing with the HMOD. Another hurricane-specific model does call for additional strengthening. Now, again, notice how close this is. The center is only about 70 nautical miles or just about 80 miles away from the Mexican coastline here. And there will be tropical storm conditions that could extend over and into coastal regions. So this, even though this may not be a direct landfall threat right now, this could still provide tropical storm conditions to the island or to the area. Now, looking at the tropical Atlantic, we notice that at least all is pretty quiet for now. But over the next several days, we'll start to look at a new system that is originating from the continental United States up here near Lake Michigan. This will be part of a mesoscale convective system, basically a big complex of thunderstorms. And this will be diving towards the south and east with time. And so this area could have a wide range of potential impacts with regards to wind threat here. But eventually, this will make its way into the tropical Atlantic, it seems like, on most models. And after that time, some development of this is definitely possible as it meanders around in the tropical Atlantic or even the Gulf. Now, there is the potential that this mesoscale convective system, it is forecast to emerge next week, but it is possible that it dives a little bit further southward, and it is possible that some of that remnant energy may make its way into the Gulf here or make its way down here and then loop around, suggesting like what the icon model was showing from yesterday. So if we look here at the GFS forecast, this is the 850 millibar vorticity, but on a wider scale here. And we notice, again, that we actually see this piece of energy right here. That was not what we wanted. But if we go back here and look, we notice that the GFS here has that piece of energy that comes off of the United States here and dives towards the south and east and does make its way out into the Atlantic. Now, this is a lot further north, but again, these things are very tricky to kind of predict. So really anywhere within here, we could see tropical development over the next couple of days to the next week or so. And eventually this gets a kick on out to sea because there's an upper level low that's sitting right here, basically forcing this thing out and away, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But it is certainly possible that by early next week we could have that beginning to occur. Now the EPS ensembles, the European ensembles, again, kind of similar to the same thing. We kind of noticed that there's a branch, a very small localized area. This isn't really a high probability of development, but there is at least some potential for that development to occur. And then you see more of a signal out here in the Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico region over the next week to 10 days. So we'll have to monitor that pretty closely. Now, in the tropical Atlantic over the next several weeks, we will be noticing a low pressure, kind of generally lower pressure setting up across this entire region. And that is in part because we don't really have as strong of a high pressure ridge sitting up here. We have lower pressures than average. And you can see here in the tropical main development region, this lower pressure than average will result in weaker trade winds and warming of the main development region. And that could be a sign that we could be dealing with close to what could be a hyperactive hurricane season this year. And for those reasons, I'm really thinking that we're going to have to increase some of the numbers that were forecasted back in the early part of June, because this just seems like it's going to be setting up for a hyperactive season. Again, hyperactive, generally speaking, is over 23 named storms. And I think we could get pretty on that cusp there or even over that. So we're just going to have to really see. Now, will this be as bad as other seasons? Again, the landfall threat and concern is certainly there this year, but it is too early to determine where any one particular storm could go. But like I said, just one storm could ruin your life and change your life forever. So it's just always important. You don't need a busy hurricane season to completely ruin your life. And I just want to throw that out there because it's very important. Now, focusing on the other big topic around here, it's the severe weather aspect of things. We do have an enhanced risk for severe storms today, kind of north and east of the I-35 corridor, somewhere roughly around portions of extreme southeastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas, into portions of Missouri and Iowa. Now, the tornado risk isn't that high, only a 5%, but there is a really high threat here for wind and hail concerns, a 30 hatched area for hail. That indicates that we could see hail that is upwards of 2.5 inches. So certainly some very damaging hail there. Day 2, we have slight risk up in the northeast United States and also a slight risk out in the kind of closer to the northwest United States, kind of in the high plains up there. Again, tornado threat is pretty minimal, but there is a tornado threat across the northeast United States and across portions of the upper Midwest. And then the day 3 outlook, another slight risk for portions of the northern United States, and also a marginal risk then extending down into portions of southeast Kentucky and western Virginia. Day 4 to 8 outlook, no areas of concern at the moment. However, it is noted that we could be dealing with a couple of areas of severe weather in this region, especially across portions of the upper Midwest and Ohio Valley. And this will be in part because of that mesoscale convective system that could be pushing offshore and that could provide tropical development. All right. So go follow me on Twitter at MikeR'Malley1. Of course, I post all sorts of content on there. That's where you can generally find me, doing my tropical weather outlooks, for the most part, and just giving some other things. So if you guys do want to go support the, Twitter and go follow me there, share this to all your friends, and certainly push that out there. As many people as we can reach, save lives and property. That's what I'm here for, and that's certainly what I, hope to do. All right. With that being said, hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.